You guys learned also previously. Mr. Eli, you sound like sleeping. Are you?
No.
Not yet?
No.
Okay. Tell me the landmark for the fourth ventricle. Where do you locate the fourth ventricle? There you go. This is the fourth ventricle where I have my finger. I cannot make it easier than that. So you're gonna find them between those two structures. This is that's the pons, the one we are talking about. And this is cerebellum. So the pons is anterior, the cerebellum is what?
Posterior.
This is my pons. If I go posterior is
Fourth ventricle.
the fourth ventricle. So if I go more posterior is
Cerebellum.
there. I told you I don't lie. Going further down with your axial cut, and we have got to the medulla. So you are seeing also the medulla, and we said the medulla has something as a landmark particular, which is represent the decussation of the corticospinal tract or pyramidal tract, responsible for the motor function. When they decussate, cross, they create pumped area, which is the right and the left pyramids, we call them. So whatever you see in green, that's what. I don't know why I didn't go. I teach that class during quarantine and they still the same. They don't want the color, they don't want to go. Anyway, so this is the pyramid. Now, other part, you don't need to worry about inferior cerebral peduncle, we'll talk about it. Whatever you see in bright, this is what? The cistern. Do you guys remember we did talk about the cistern? So those are also what? The cistern. A huge nuclei that belong to the also medulla, we call it the olive nuclei. Also olive nuclei is big ones located at the level of the medulla. What's the name of this canal? The aqueduct canal. So basically, the aqueduct canal, we said, run the whole entire length of what? Of the brain stem. And we are seeing just part of that canal where they call it over here the median fissure, and this is the part of your fourth ventricle, correct. So the aqueduct canal basically connect the third ventricle with what? With the fourth ventricle. So where are you cutting? It depends where is the cut. You'll be able to see either part of the canal with the fourth ventricle or just the fourth ventricle. And if you go more toward the posterior, you will see the cerebellum. Cerebellum, sorry. Any question? So 3 easy images, Mrs. Sasha, that you need to know. Numeral uno, at the level of your midbrain. Numeral dos, at the level of the pons. And numeral tres, at the level of what? Of your medulla. And each of those has a landmark that also you need to remember. Let's go to the coronal. In coronal cut, if you can tell from this picture or from this mannequin, your brainstem is not straight up like this. It is what? Oblique, correct? So if I cut coronal, I am not going to be able to see all 3 parts at the same time because it's what? It is oblique. So when I cut coronal, I could see probably midbrain and pons or pons and medulla, but I cannot see all 3 of them at one time. Did you guys get the point? Okay, so this is what you guys are seeing. Coming from superior toward inferior, meaning the cut is this way. I'm coming from superior toward what? Inferior. Look at the map. That's mean which part of your cerebral hemisphere is this? Right and left, which? You want to take frontal, parietal, whichever you want. Use your common sense. Look at the map. No? Don't look at the map. Tell me.
What's the question?
What's the question?
Yeah.
That's a good point.
It's parietal temporal.
What are those? I know. Which part of the cerebrum? The frontal, the parietal, the temporal, the occipital. Or you could say none of the above. Parietal, good. And that would be?
Temporal.
Okay. That's it. That's what I'm asking you. I don't ask hard question, guys. Okay? If I ask hard question, tell me. Excuse me, that's hard question. So, going down further, you are going to see Senorita Pons. Correct? And you can see some reflection of what? Of
Third.
the third ventricle, and this is part of the aqueduct canal. Even if they did not point on it, we could do by ourselves. Who cares? They don't have to, but we can do it. We are way better than them. Correct? The fibers that connect the right and the left cerebral hemisphere, we call it what? The corpus callosum. So the corpus callosum and the pharynx are next to each other, so you can use that. Whoa. So this is the corpus callosum. Underneath of my corpus callosum, I have the pharynx. And we said the pharynx is a part of your emotional brain, exactly, limbic system, correct. And we say to identify any part of the emotional brain, the limbic system, you look at the largest gyri in the temporal lobe. So if I said earlier, this is my temporal lobe, that's me, I'm talking about this. So the cut from outside is over here, and this is my hippocampus. Now the cut is a little bit toward the back, and this is why you are seeing part of the tectum of the midbrain. Just for your own information. So this is my midbrain, correct? The tectum is toward the posterior, this portion, that piece. So you see how the aqueduct canal, it's like you can use, the aqueduct canal is separating this tectum part of my midbrain to the brain. So this is what you are seeing exactly. That's the aqueduct canal. If you go towards superior from the aqueduct canal, which is, I'm talking about this tiny pump area over here, those are what? The nuclei, which is, we call them the superior and the inferior. And there is no brainer. This is the superior one, and if I go down, that would be what? The inferior one. So it's easy to tell which one is superior and which one is the inferior. And of course, part of the neuronal tissue that connect my cerebrum with my brainstem, we call it the peduncle, and this is the peduncle that connect.
Which one is the peduncle on what you're holding, on the brain that you're holding? Can you see it?
You
there?
don't see it.
Okay.
Those are only fibers.
Gotcha.
We moved way more toward the posterior. So the first one this way, and then this way, and now almost we get to what? Coronal cut at the level of the medulla, and this is what you guys are seeing, part of the medulla with the cerebral peduncle. Also, you still be able to see the tectum because this and this, those two, they are still at the same one. Plan cut, the tectum and the medulla, okay? The aqueduct canal, it's in the middle, which is this one. And of course, toward more superior, you will see the pineal gland, which is part of your epithalamus or the diencephalon, and we still see the parietal lobes. So the medulla and the cerebral peduncles, the aqueduct canal, and more toward superior is the colliculi or the tectum. Any question? Question? No? Why?
In the previous image, what was the difference between the olive and the medulla?
The olives are nuclei, The nuclei, they belong to the medulla.
Okay.
It's within the medulla, those. Yeah. So only in sagittal cut like this, we can see what? The whole entire structure of the brain stem. In axial, we see only one of the above. In coronal, also what? One of the above. So when I cut only sagittal or mid-sagittal, you will see all of the above. Okay? The next structure is your small brain, or what we call it, cerebellum, which is that one. And of course, it is located in your posterior fossa, correct? And the cerebellum, basically, that they call it small brain because it's at some point resemble what? The big brain, the cerebrum. We said previously that the cerebrum has cortical area. And at the level of the cortical area, you will see what? The pumped area that we call it gyri, and those crack, we call it sulci. Now, the concept is, over here is the same, as you can tell, but they didn't make it the same way. They make it a little different. This is why they don't want to call them gyri and sulci. They call them by, where is that word? Foil? Okay. The foil. Correct?
Folio.
Folio.
Folio. I don't know. I'm looking for it. That's why. There you go. Folio. Folio. That's mean folding. It's just you could see that are folding. Okay? So, it is the same concept also like the cerebrum. We said the right and the left cerebral hemisphere are completely isolated except for one area. You see, they are isolated except what? Where are they connected? By Mr. Corpus callosum. So the concept also for the cerebellum, it is right and left hemisphere. There, those are the two hemispheres. Also are completely isolated except they are connected by small middle tissue that we call it vermis. They call it vermis because it looks like a verm. Yeah, this one. That's the vermis. Little tiny extension toward the posterior from each hemisphere of the cerebellum. They call it the tongue. Tongue-like extension. Or tonsils, not tongue, sorry. Replace tonsils, the tonsils. From inside, which is the way you guys see over here, it is also same like cerebrum. We said previously the cerebrum has gray and white matter. So do your cerebellum has gray and white matter. If you guys remember, for the cerebrum, we say within the medulla white matter, I have what? Gray matter, and we call them basal nuclei. Remember any basal of the nuclei? Remind us. Anyone? Hurry up. What do you mean? No, you just have the taste. You point on 3 of them today. Go ahead. Mrs. Starr, help me. You are my hero. Putman, correct. Caudate, lentiform. There, those are. So those are gray matter. You see them inside of the white matter, spread it. The concept also over here in my cerebellum. The inside part of my cerebellum is a white matter, and I have what? Nuclei that are gray matter. You don't need to remember any of them, but you have the biggest one, we call it dentate nuclei. Dentate one. That's the largest one. There's a lot of them, right? There's a lot of them. What? Do you remember any function of your cerebellum? Any? Huh? Balance, correct. How about you, sir? Any other one? No? Memory. No. I will be in trouble if the memory. Or not only me, all of us. Do you know that the cerebellum is the first structure in your brain to be affected by tequila. Okay, to understand the function of your cerebellum, imagine yourself driving drunk and the cop pull you over. Before he gives you the what is DUI? DUI. Before he gives you the DUI, he has to what? To prove that you are what? Drunk. What the cop told you when he pulled you over? Did you ever get pulled over? You do? I like your honesty. What's your name, sir? What's your name? You changed your mind now?
No, I told him no.
Ah, you told him you're not drinking.
But I was.
You were. Okay, now, how he figured out that you're not lying?
No. Well, he pulled me out and I passed the test. He let me go. But I was.
How he did the test? That's what I want to know.
He did like
The finger.
What?
Okay, all right. So basically, what he did to you, basically, all those reflexes, the one he asked you to do, are belonging to what? To the cerebellum. So what they do, they asking you to do fine movement, we call it, not big movement. Big movement, anybody, even drunk person can do it. The fine movement, no one can do it. For example, you need to walk like this, correct? Those we call them fine, precise movement. Or touch your finger, touch the tip of your nose with your finger. If you are drunk, you will never do it. You're gonna do this. Or your finger goes on the opposite side. The same way when he told you to move what? Your eye. Because he is asking you to do what? Very precise movement. So your cerebellum is very sensitive to what? To the alcohol, and it's the first structure that will be affected. And this is what. Why? Here you go. Any movement action, we say coming from where? Frontal lobe cortical area. This is where your the motor area, correct? This stimulus has to go down to exit from where? From my spinal cord through the spinal nerve. And I said earlier, your imagination for any stimulus, it's like a bus from San Diego to LA, or let's do it, LA to San Diego, correct? And there is what? Stations. So that stimulus has to stop where? In every single station, which is, we said, the nuclei. Now, when the stimulus reach the cerebropeduncle, has to go to where? To midbrain or the brainstem. From the brainstem, has to go that stimulus to where? To the cerebellum. And then from my cerebellum back to where? To brainstem, and then further down on my spinal cord. So basically, I'm gonna put my three finger like this. This is midbrain, and that's superior bridge or superior peduncles. This is pons, and this is the middle peduncle, and this is my medulla, and that would be what? The inferior. So you are moving from superior towards inferior. You have 1, 2, 3. Those are the cerebellar peduncles. Nothing comes from the cortex movement without go what? To your cerebellum. Why? Because your cerebellum has to what? To coordinate your movement. Did you guys understand that? No? Good. I'm gonna give you an example. Have you ever seen any person walking like this? You've ever seen somebody walking like this? Those people, if you ever see them, those people, they have a stroke in their way. Cerebellum. And we refer to this movement by ataxia. Why? Close your eye and you can walk and you can tell when the foot reach the ground. You don't put it that way, correct? Close your eye and you can be able to feel every single step on the stairs. Why? Because this is what we refer to it by coordinated fine movement. Question? No question. You don't, so you have the superior, the middle, and the inferior peduncles, okay? And it's obviously the superior connect with the midbrain, the middle connect with the pons, and the inferior connect with the medulla. And as we said, those are a matter of what? Fibers that move between cerebrum, cerebellum for coordinating our movement. This is a sagittal cut, correct? Meaning the other one. The other one. There. You see? Sagittal cut of your whole entire brain. From superior to inferior, that's inferior, that's posterior. Midbrain, pons, medulla, and the continuation will be spinal canal. Tectum or colliculi, superior and inferior colliculi are here, and then between the midbrain and the part of the tectum is my aqueduct canal. So this is the reflection of the aqueduct canal that you guys seen previously. There. If I said this is the aqueduct canal, go towards superior, that would be third ventricle. So if I go further inferior, will be what? The fourth ventricle, correct. Any question? No. Move toward posterior. From the brainstem, you are going to see what? The cerebellar hemisphere. And this is supposed to be the vermis, where they connect, and this is the tonsils.
Where's the tonsil? I'm sorry.
It's like pump something.
Oh, yeah.
And then, what you guys learned, the fold of the dura between cerebrum and cerebellum, that we call it the tentorium. All right. Any question? And the rest of the image, you guys know it, unless I'm wrong.
The pineal gland is the one.
The pineal gland is going to be, you need to relate pineal gland to epithalamus. And epithalamus, we don't know where is the epithalamus, but it is part of my diencephalon. Normally, for the diencephalon, the only easy part that we can see is the thalamus. If I name this the third ventricle, the roof of your third ventricle made out by the right and left lateral thalamus masses. So the roof of the third ventricle is what? Made by the thalamus, correct? If you go toward the posterior, you will see the pineal gland. If you go toward the anterior from the thalamus, you're gonna see senior hypothalamus. The connection between the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland is infundibulum. The pituitary gland sits on what? Sella turcica. Toward inferior of my sella turcica is my sphenoid sinus. Correct? This is my pharynx. Right in front of the sella turcica is the crossing of the optic nerve. We're gonna learn about that one. Don't worry about it. But you guys, if ever notice how I am naming the structure based on what? On how I'm moving. What do I want? Correct? Okay. If you move towards superior from the thalamus, what do you see? Corpus callosum. What's underneath of the corpus callosum? Which ventricle? Lateral ventricle. That's the way you guys need to name the structure. And by the way, for the discussion, of course, all of you guys are doing okay with the discussion. Some of you making small, tiny mistakes, no big deal. The point is, we want you to look at the picture. But if you wish, that's my opinion and my advice if you wish. When you do describe, do not describe just superior and inferior and let's pretend that you point on one of the images for the corpus callosum. What do you need to write down? What would you write down? Don't write down located posterior or superior to the structure. You can write down more. The more you write down, the more you memorize better, and the more you are better on imaging, guys. Believe me. I can say corpus callosum,
White matter.
white fibers connecting right and left cerebral hemisphere, seen superior to ventricle, lateral ventricle, also superior to what? To my thalamus. Oh, you see, consists of what are the four parts? The spleen, the genu,
Body,
the
genu.
body. So you can add more description if you wish. I am not going to ask you to do so. I am not going to. I mean, if you guys realize that as long as you are submitting your assignment, I'm giving you 100. Even if you are making mistake, for some of you that they made a mistake, I already put, please correct it. And of course, the point is not the 10%. The point is for you what? Just to learn. If you wish to point on more structure in any other image, you're more than welcome. It doesn't have to be 3 of them. You can point on 10, I don't mind. You guys get the point? As long as the image is good, Mr. Eli, don't give me hard time, okay? Your first image, I need a panicular, not panicular, a microscope to tell what are you, excuse me, what is this? I keep trying to enlarge, never happened. So don't give me hard time, okay? I need it that big, okay? Any question? No question, good. This is a coronal cut for the cerebellum, and you can tell that you need to read all the way toward the posterior aspect because the cerebellum is located on the posterior fossa. So you are seeing the temporal lobe, and I'm sorry, the occipital lobe because they are toward the posterior, and those are the horns of the lateral ventricle, the occipital horn. If you move toward inferior, you will see the right and left cerebellar hemisphere, and Senorita vermis is the connection area, and those are penicils. The separation between the cerebrum and the cerebellum is the tentorium cerebri. We're gonna see this image later on today, also for cranial nerve. If I'm moving from anterior toward posterior, I will see the pons, the fourth ventricle, and then the cerebellar hemisphere. And whatever you are seeing in white, this is the cistern, and this is the trigeminal nerve, which is, we're gonna talk about it later on. You don't need to worry about this for now. Same picture, which is they're showing you the pons, the fourth ventricle, and more toward the posterior is the cerebrum and the cistern, the prepontine cistern, and acoustic vestibular nerve or cranial nerve number 8. And we said the cistern are more found around the brain stem because my 12 cranial nerve, they originate from those areas, and this is will provide a little bit more protection. Same. Any question?
Great.
Question? No question? You want a break?